everyone. This is chapter 6 of class 12 history, Bhakti Sufi traditions, changes in religious beliefs and devotional texts. In this video, we will discuss two topics. One is a mosaic of religious beliefs and the practices, and the other one is poems of prayer, early tradition of bhakti. So let us start a mosaic of religious beliefs and practices. Perhaps the most striking feature of this phase is the increasing visibility of a wide range of gods and goddesses in sculpture as well as in texts. This indicates the extended worship of the major deities Vishnu, Shiva, and the goddesses, each of whom was visualized in a variety of forms. Historians who have tried to understand these developments suggest that there were at least two processes at work. One was a process of disseminating Brahminical ideas by the composition, compilation, and preservation of Puranic texts in simple Sanskrit verse, explicitly meant to be accessible to women and Shudras who were generally excluded from Vedic learning. The second process at work, that of the Brahmins accepting and reworking the beliefs and practices of these and other social categories. One of the most striking examples of this process is evident at Puri, Orissa, where the principal deity was identified by the 12th century as Jagannatha, a form of Vishnu. Here, Vishnu was visualized in a way that was very different from that in other parts of the country. Such instances of integration and evident amongst goddesses cults as well. These local deities were often incorporated within the Puranic framework by providing them with an identity as a wife of the principal male deity. Difference and conflict. Tantric practices were widespread in several parts of the subcontinent. They were open to women and men, and practitioners often ignored differences of caste and class within the ritual context. All of those somewhat divergent and even desperate beliefs and practices would come to be classified as Hindu over the course of the next millennium. The principal deities of the Vedic pantheon, Agni, Indra, and Soma, became marginal figures. There were sometimes conflict as well. Those who valued the Vedic tradition often condemned practices that went beyond the closely regulated contact with the divine through the performance of sacrifices or precisely chanted mantras. Relations with other traditions, such as Buddhism and Jainism, were also often fraught with tension, if not open conflict. During this period, expressions of devotion ranged from the routine worship of deities within temples to ecstatic adoration, where devotees attained a trance like state. The singing and chanting of devotional compositions were often a part of such modes of worship. Poems of prayers, early traditions of bhakti. In the course of evolution, poet saints emerged as leaders around whom there developed a community of devotees. While Brahmins remained important intermediaries between gods and devotees in several forms of bhakti, these traditions also accommodated and acknowledged women and the lower caste categories considered ineligible for liberation within the orthodox Brahminical framework. Historians of religion often classify bhakti tradition into two broad categories: saguna with attributes and nirguna without attributes. The former included traditions that focused on the worship of specific deities such as Shiva, Vishnu, and his avatars, and forms of the goddesses or Devi. Nirguna Bhakti, on the other hand, was worship of an abstract form of God, the Alvars and Nayanars of Tamil Nadu. Some of the earliest bhakti movements were led by the Alvars, literally those who are immersed in devotion to Vishnu, and Nayanars, literally leaders who were devotees of Shiva. They traveled from place to place, singing hymns in Tamil in praise of their gods. During their travels, the Alvars and Nayanars identified certain shrines as adobes of their chosen deity. These developed as centers of pilgrimage. Singing compositions of these poet saints became part of temple rituals in these shrines, as did worship of the saints' images. Attitude towards caste. Some historians suggest that the Alvars and Nayanars initiated a movement of protest against the caste system and the dominance of Brahmins, or at least attempted to reform the system. The fact was that bhaktas hailed from diverse social backgrounds ranging from Brahmins to artisans and cultivators, and even from castes considered untouchable. One of the major anthologies of compositions by the Alvars and Nayanars, sorry, Alvars, the Nalaira Divya Prabandham, was frequently described as the Tamil Veda, thus claiming that the text was as significant as the four Vedas in Sanskrit that were cherished by the Brahmins. Women devotee. The composition of Andal, a woman Alvar, were widely sung. Andal saw herself as the beloved of Vishnu. Her verses express her love for the deity. Another woman, Karaikal Amayar, a devotee of Shiva, adopted the path of extreme asceticism in order to attain her goal. Her compositions were preserved within the Nayanar tradition. Their very existence and their compositions posed a challenge to patriarchal norms. Relations with the state. From the second half of the first millennium, there is evidence for states, including those of the Pallavas and Pandyas. While Buddhism and Jainism had been prevalent in this region for several centuries, drawing support from merchants and artisan communities, these religious traditions received occasional royal patronage. One of the major themes in Tamil Bhakti hymns is the poet's opposition to Buddhism and Jainism. Historians suggested that it was due to competition between members of other religious traditions for royal patronage. Both Nayanars and Alvars were revered by the Velala peasants. Rulers tried to win their support as well. Further inscriptional evidence from around 945 suggests that the Chola ruler Parantaka I had consecrated metal images of Upper Sambandhar and Sundarar in a Shiva temple. These were carried in processions during the festivals of these saints. For today, this much. Thank you.